So Elle sent us this video from Italy so that we could eat gelato with her, but I don't know if is it playing?
Yeah, I feel like this one is much more immersive than the last one you made me try on. I feel like you're right next to me.
But I am, I guess.
Guys. The phone, it goes in the headset.
Into the headset? I thought this was it. Oh, okay. Oh. Yes, it's much different. More. Well, filmmakers and VR creatives, welcome to another week's video. This week, Kat and I, we're going to talk to you a little bit about some of the VR terms you should get acquainted with if you want to make your own VR experience.
Yeah, so I'm going to kick us off with what VR is. If you haven't tried it yourself, it's basically a 360 panorama that you can immerse yourself in a story. So there's certain terms that you would encounter when making a VR film that you wouldn't encounter in a 2D film. So first of all, there's a couple of camera angles that you need to get your head around. The first one is your zenith, which is the point directly above you as you look up in the VR experience, and the nadir, which is the point directly below you. So the nadir is usually where you'd have your tripod and where your camera would be stood. So that requires a lot of editing to make it look a little bit better, because you'll usually get just a black space underneath, and that's called nadir patching.
Sounds like a pretty helpful guide. And next up, we have stitching. What is stitching? So obviously, when you're making your VR experience, you're using multiple cameras. And the stitching would be using software in order to combine all these individual images in order to create a seamless panorama. But what is a stitch line? A stitch line is a visible seam in a panoramic image that is caused by imperfect stitching.
Not good at all. So we all know what an opening shot is in film, but in VR we call it something different. When you first put on your headset and you look straight ahead and the VR image starts, that's called your first view. So it's the first part of the panorama that your viewer sees. There's also something called a parallax. And parallax occurs when something's too close to the 360 camera, which makes it really impossible to get a clean stitch. So you need to make sure that you watch out for that when you start filming.
And then we have the shutter sync. And the shutter sync is obviously the synchronized opening and closing of individual cameras so that all the cameras can start recording at the same time.
So although VR is a visual panorama, you really need to think about sound when you're recording. So we have ambisonic audio, which is a full sphere of sound, almost like surround sound. But then we also have binaural audio, which takes into account how your head hears in 3D, so you can find the direction of the sound. Now this only works with headphones and it won't necessarily work with speakers, but you need to take into account how you're going to record it and which sound you're going to go for.
Yeah. So check out our website for up-and-coming VR courses and events, and make sure to visit our festival in September, because we're definitely going to have a VR experience.
Like no other.
With very important people.
Hi guys, back from Italy. I've been eating gelato all day, every day. It was great. And now I have more of the, where is the gelato? Prosecco.
Is this VR?
Elle? How are you doing this?
Is she not in Italy?
Are we there? Let's talk about your nadir.
Let's talk about nadir, baby. Let's talk about
all the sand in that night.